Hello everyone, thank you for joining the MetaFacts session. I'd like to present Sebastian Schmidt, the CEO of MetaFacts, who's going to deliver a presentation and a demo today. The floor is yours, Sebastian.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Ivan. So let me share my slides. So I want to talk about semantic models today and why semantic models are so important and how they support explainable and trustworthy data-driven business decisions. That's a lot of words coming together on explainable, trustworthy, data-driven business decisions. So we're going to look at each of those parts separately and then hopefully put the whole picture together with a short demo. Just a few words on MetaFacts. So we started in 2014. We are headquartered in Waldorf in Germany, but have an international team pretty much all across the globe. We are primarily a software vendor with one product called MetaFactory, our knowledge democratization platform. And since the beginning of the year, we are part of the digital science group. So to get started, how do we actually make decisions? There are two parts that are very important. There is a more logical side, actual knowledge. We are working with that, we are deriving from that, and a creative side where we do that actual deriving, where we are making up new things, where we are drawing connections that don't exist yet. And that is what helps us to make decisions also on new ground, on topics that we have not seen before and where we have not made decisions before and where we don't have experience yet. Now, if we try to connect that more to how do we make decisions in the enterprise and the topic of data-driven business decisions, it's actually quite funny that we call them data-driven, because in the end, based on data, we can't really take decisions. Data is it's very complex to correctly interpret if we do not have the right context, if we don't understand the meaning of it. So if we have a data point saying 32 degrees, what does that actually mean? Is it a temperature? Is it an angle? Is it if it's a temperature, is it Celsius? Is it Fahrenheit? And even then, is that the temperature, outside temperature? Is it the temperature of a glass oven? It's quite some more context, quite some more information we need to say, well, we actually have knowledge, we correctly understand it, and only then we can draw those insights from it. Only then we can take decisions, so have actionable knowledge.
Excuse me,
However,
Sebastian.
yes.
If you mean to share your screen, we still can't see it.
Oh,
So
that's a good point.
please do.
Thanks, Ivan. I thought I had clicked on that. Can you see the screen now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So then let me regain control of my slides. So we talked about the two sides of the brain on making decisions. And I talked about how we get from data information to knowledge to decisions. Now, we're taking decisions every day in our organizations. And the question is how we do actually do that, based on what do we do it? Because everyone is fighting for that data-driven decision making, and very few are actually there. So when we take decisions today, it is very often based on knowledge that a specific domain expert has acquired. So we have all of those subject matter experts, domain experts, that actually have that experience and they can take those decisions. On the other hand, we see a lot of industries struggling with those people retiring soon, and a lot of drain of such knowledge, a lot of knowledge disappearing from the company over time, with people either leaving the workforce completely, switching to a competitor or similar. So we are trying to capture it in documents, and we are trying to automate systems and capture it somewhere in software, somewhere in code. But again, it's not really accessible there. It's still hidden. Humans cannot work well with it. Machines can't work well with it. So this is not really working for anyone. And I like to call it the Bermuda Triangle of knowledge drain. So all of that knowledge will go get lost again, and has to be reacquired over and over again. And that is where semantic models and knowledge graphs come in. So there's a lot of marketing buzz you will probably hear, and I assume at an OntoText event, I don't have to educate you on the importance of RDF and why we think that is the right standard to build your knowledge graph and your semantic models, your knowledge on, because we get those interpretable, executable semantics. But on the other hand, there is the human side to that. And humans are not very good at using databases. They're not very good at using APIs and understanding RDF. They're not even that great at working with Sparkle. So we need some way to expose what we are doing here, building off that knowledge, consuming of that knowledge, searching across it, and deriving decisions from it through a user interface, for something that is tailored to those specific individuals that have to work with it. And they might be very far from IT. They very likely somewhere in the business. And this has to cater to how they think, how they speak, how they work with that. Now, just a few more words on that working together between humans and machines. So on the human side, we want to explicitly capture knowledge. We want to build a knowledge graph as a symbolic, explicit representation of knowledge. And then we want to combine that with the machine being able to interpret the knowledge graph, run machine learning, utilize large language models, and so on, to get such a new symbolic integration, bringing together the best of those two worlds and building, first of all, trust in machines, but then also explaining and training what the machines do from that knowledge, and then also augmenting and completing knowledge on the side of the human, which is really where the machine can be strong, because no company will be able to manually capture all of the knowledge they have today. There is way too much that has to be lifted and shifted, that has to be contextualized and integrated, and only working together with machines and keeping the human in the loop, jointly building it up. This is actually something that is realistic to take on. Now I was talking about the language of the individual, and this is a complex one because there's not just this one language. We can't just build one model and it explains everything and everyone will understand it. Because if we look at the business, we already have different languages within the business of an organization. We have additionally languages of data engineers, developers, language of IT, and we somehow have to cater to all of that. Luckily, that is something we can do with the knowledge graph, and we can layer those things. So if we look at the languages of the business, and I have an example here from the IDMP ontology. So this is describing regulatory information around medicinal products. And we see how we can structure that in the form of an ontology. However, it already gets interesting when we try to interface with other domains, when we are talking to people in research, in commercial and market access, in manufacturing on the pharma side. They will not talk about medicinal products. They might talk about a compound, a medication, a pharmacologic substance. And then the question is that the same thing? How does it relate to it? How do I get from one to the other? So we kind of have to build individual ontologies in their language, in their thinking, for their field, for their data, for their use cases, for their decisions. And then we have to tie them together and define exactly how they link to each other. And I have a few examples here of how we make that accessible and jointly collaborate with SMEs via a canvas to model those ontologies. So this is the IDMP example we saw a second ago. Or similarly, we do that in the space of competencies, modeling relations between competencies, competency targets, competency holders, and so on. Now, if we look at IT and enterprise information architecture, we have to consider an additional layer. So we have that business object layer with those real and virtual objects of the business world. And we're taking here more of a discrete manufacturing use case. So we are talking about packaging materials, plants, countries. We are thinking of how they integrate with a business process, which is also an important part if we're looking at from enterprise information architecture. And then we also have to map it to the IT. So we have to map it to physical data models, physical structures of the data, part of the IT landscape, and create an understanding across all of that. So again, this is something we can capture in ontologies, and we can now go ahead and say, well, if we have such a business object, like a medicinal product or a manufacturing plant, then we can map this to business processes, to IT systems, to object classification. So we can have kind of a layer of ontologies that help us represent all of that information. And we can map it all the way to physical representations and the specific storage in the different IT systems. So we also have an example on this here, how we are bringing those different worlds together and then also allowing these people to build such systems and understand their relevant part of that story and of that view on our data and our knowledge. Now, I said people are not very good if we don't give them UIs, and this was only on the modeling so far. So it gets even more complex if we want people to interact with the data, and we need to provide them driven from their specific use case, from their specific way of interacting with the data, a way to see it, to search it, to explore it, to curate information, create knowledge in there. And we do that by packaging those semantic models, ontologies, vocabularies, AI models with the metadata or data and putting UI templates into that, packaging that as an app, so giving it an API and a user interface, and then deploying those in the enterprise. And that all comes together in our MetaFactory product. So this can just connect to GraphDB as your graph database. You can explore, search, discover your existing knowledge graph in there. You can do modeling of your knowledge graph and persist those ontologies, vocabularies, and everything, again, into GraphDB and utilize that with your knowledge graph. And then you can, in a low-code platform that is driven from the ontologies and from the knowledge graph, quickly build a user experience for specific users, for their specific needs of how they need to interact with that data to have the relevant knowledge available to take decisions. And obviously, a graph doesn't always have to look like a graph. We see some examples on the left side where there's no graph, things we have built together with the Ontotext team. Also, some work with another partner where we have built solutions where the graph structure and the network structure is more important for the interaction of the user. We have systems in the engineering manufacturing, as an example here, that have been built by Siemens Energy with our platform, or something we built together with Capco in the data lineage, digital twin space. So there are a number of interfaces you can build with that. And about a few months ago, we had the challenge that we realized within MetaFactory we actually have a need as well. and that is we are creating a lot of resources on the marketing and sales side that we want to make accessible to our customers, and where we want you to be able to easily find the right resource for your specific information need. Where we want to support you in finding relevant documents, webinars, videos, white papers, and all kinds of things. And obviously, the best way to structure that is a knowledge graph. So what I want to do now is I want to walk you briefly through what we have built there, and basically an example of how you can apply MetaFactory end-to-end if you have such a use case. So what we can see here is our resource hub as it is embedded on our website. So if you go to metafacts.com, you can click on resource hub, and you will see that resource hub here. You can see we have a number of highlighted contents, and then we have here an easy way to search for content, and you can also filter it by different resource types, topics, use cases. So we can, for example, say we are interested in agriculture and agri-food, and we see everything that we have in that space. You can jump to the resource, but you can also get more specific information about it. And we can see related resources to that based on a similarity score we are calculating over the graph. So a basic application of AI already surfacing to the user here. This is something we are continuously developing further. So we only launched this very recent. And what I want to show you now is the behind the covers. So the thing that you would usually not see as a user of that system. So obviously, just let me log in again. So as you see, we start from the ontology. So you already saw the ontology management screen. We are using schema.org as the base ontology. So we have just imported that, and then we build an excerpt from that, which we are expanding with our own needs for additional classes and relations and attributes in here, which we call the resource hub ontology. So you can already see that on the coloring scheme. Let me zoom in a little bit more. We have those yellow ones that come from schema.org, and that also helps us to do search engine optimization for all of the things we publish via our resource hub. And then this links to a number of vocabularies we have created. We have created some additional classes where we did not find something matching in schema.org. So we can correctly classify things. And we are step by step building more extensions to this. We can, for example, also look at, and we can, all of that can be managed in here. So we can just switch to edit mode, create a new class here on the canvas, link it up to things. We can also look at one of the linked vocabularies. So we have a topic vocabulary here. And we can see that we can also manage that. So we can just go in here and, for example, under composable enterprise, we can introduce a new term and manage all of that as well. The next step is that someone has to curate data that matches into that ontology that utilizes those vocabularies. And again, that's a common pattern of how you would also do your data integration, or how you would have users also curate such information. So what we have is a data curation interface that is driven by that ontology, and for every class gives us a simple way to publish new information. We can, for example, look at existing publications that we have in the system. We can modify them. We can rank them on how we want to see them. We can create a new resource. And all of this is driven from the ontology. So the amount of configuration is minimal here, because whenever we expand the ontology, those forms get automatically updated, the experience get automatically updated, and we can capture all of the information here as a user in the way we need it. And then at the same time, we can have a very tailored experience. I'm just going to close that form. we can have a very tailored experience for interacting with that. So just this one here. So where we have the user interface of how you want to really interact with that. Where in the background there is a graph, but you don't necessarily see it. In your enterprise, you might also have relevant data-focused users. You might have developers that have to understand the data model. So at the same time, we are also publishing the data model explicitly, meaning if we go back to the ontology, we can also have a look at what actually is a creative work. We can have entry points for users to jump in and learn about every class, every property, every relation that we have in our system, and interact with that. In the same way, we also always have a way to jump to the graph itself. And here we can understand what are all of the subclasses that are defined in here. We have a white paper, for example, and we can see the definitions around that. And from here, jump from one thing to the other. So I think publication. I think I clicked somewhere on somewhere that I didn't want to get to. So let's do that maybe just a second on the Resource Hub ontology on, for example, a webinar. Second. So here we can also see the individual instances for that. And I can now from here explore the graph. I can see the instances that are typed as a webinar. I can explore the graph in all of its detail and see exactly how everything is interlinked. So we are basically catering to every user interacting with this, from really the data engineer being able to go low level down and really explore all details of what's in the data with info panels, with exploration throughout the graph. We have the interfaces for the joint modeling together with SMEs on the ontologies or vocabularies, as well as creating data. And then we can have very tailored interfaces of how we want to publish that, which we can, as we did it here, also embed, for example, into our website or into our applications from where that can be consumed. Yeah, so much I wanted to present today. So let me quickly jump back to my slides. So thanks a lot for your time and for following along on this. We do have also a way for you to test this out. So we have different ways of testing MetaFactory, and we have a 4-week trial with a self-guided tutorial around the ontology modeling specifically also. And you have the link here, but also I'm happy to hear if there are other ways of how you would like to learn more about us. So reach out and let's see if there are any questions so far.
So Sebastian, Nasser is asking, how do you classify the different resources with the different vocabularies? Is there any sort of automated text analysis and tagging in MetaFactory?
No, so this is again a field where we collaborate with partners. So in MetaFactory, we really put the focus on manually creating information, basically checking and validating automatically created information, and then visualizing and exploring it. And when you are more interested in, for example, utilizing those vocabularies to extract information from text and all of that, then we would again be partnering with Ontotext and others to enable those parts as well.
Yeah, that kind of answers the next more general question by Richard Hackathon. Could current LLMs assist in the generating knowledge graphs for specific enterprises?
Yeah, absolutely. And that is something where we are investing. So there's obviously ways how you can use LLMs to create an even more easy way of interacting with that knowledge and allowing users a natural language prompt that we are then translating into a query on the graph. So that is something we already have in the portfolio. And then another way we see large language models is in supporting us in curating that knowledge, giving suggestions already to users, deriving, for example, such business models also directly from a database schema or something like that. So that's definitely where we will have more and more AI assists showing up in MetaFactory that help you do those tasks.
Yeah, Richard asking again, could MetaFactory have an API to accept AI assistance?
Yes. So we already have a mechanism for that. But basically, since the beginning of the platform, where we also in the past integrated external data sources, kind of virtually federating them in, which we also utilize to integrate in AI services in general, machine learning, a reasoner, and such things. And that certainly is also a way to integrate with further services to support users and pre-generate something either embedded into a search, into a curation workflow or similar.
Theodora is asking, how exactly do you enhance your SEO performance? Do you publish the JSON LD along your content resources?
Yes. So that is something where now finally the marketing team doesn't have to separately take care of that anymore. So by already structuring all of the information around each content item in the resource hub, we utilize that to automatically publish the JSON LD into everywhere where we use that resource. So they all of those pages interface with the MetaFactory APIs to pull that information for that resource, which also means if you are updating it centrally in the resource hub, then wherever you are using it, there's automatically the correct JSON LD published with it as well.
Dirk is asking, how rich are the ontology editing features in, I assume, MetaFactory?
Mhm. So we are not the editor for the super expert. So we think there is already a number of tools out there, open source and other, that cater to the needs of the ontologist. What our core focus is bringing everyone from the subject matter expert to the ontologist together into one canvas to do modeling. So we are using parts of OWL and Shackle that we bring together to give you the ontology modeling experience. And again, this is all built on the low coding platform. So we can bring in things that might not be there by default. If you say, well, in my specific use case, we have to absolutely be able to model this and that, and that's not there. But the core focus is keeping it simple, keeping it easy, and ensuring that everyone modeling in that canvas understands what they are doing, understands the implications of it, so that that can be an effective exercise.
So a comment answering that question from our CEO, Atanas. We use MetaFactory internally for ontology editing, and also we use MetaFactory for onto-text version of the resource hub. We build a knowledge graph of our own marketing resources on our website, which we call the onto-text knowledge graph. And disambiguation with Metadata Studio, which is an onto-text tool used for everything related to text analytics and document processing. This is different from MetaFactory, which Sebastian is presenting.
Mhm.
Thanks everyone for your attention. We'll take a short break now and reconnect back in 30 minutes to see the Synaptica presentation. Feel free to take a break. We recommend looking at the Expo button where you can find the booths of all our exhibitors. And we greatly recommend hitting the networking button, which will give you a speed dating experience with the other participants in the forum. Hope you enjoy it and see you back in 30. Take care. Thank you, Sebastian.
Thanks.